By the end of 1863, both the Union and the Confederacy were drained. But the war was far from over. What happened next would reshape America forever. Here's the story of 1864, the year everything changed. After Gettysburg, many on both sides had reached their limit. They wanted the fighting to stop. Too many lives had already been lost in a conflict where families were torn apart. But for Union leadership, stopping wasn't an option. Gettysburg marked a turning point for the North. Early in the war, the South often had the advantage, but that was shifting. The Confederacy was running low on steam and money, while the Yankees were finally building real momentum. So, as 1863 turned into 1864, the war kept going. The Union now wanted to deal a serious blow by pushing deeper into key Southern territories. This was going to be the biggest joint Army-Navy operation of the entire conflict. Their main target, Shreveport, Louisiana's capital. If captured, it could give the North a path into Texas. But problems plagued the plan from the start. For starters, Rear Admiral David Dixon Porter had only agreed to join if Major General William T. Sherman led the land forces. Sherman himself had planned to. But General Ulysses Grant was busy with other Northern objectives and made Sherman stay and assist him. That left Major General Nathaniel P. Banks in charge, a decision that upset both Porter and Sherman. Sherman even sent 10,000 of his best troops to Porter, making it clear this was in case Banks abandoned the Navy if his own men got into trouble. The issue with Banks? He wasn't really a soldier. He was a politician, and he needed this campaign to gain military experience and a win. Another problem was Banks's plan to use three separate groups: Porter's 90-boat fleet, Banks's own 20,000 troops from New Orleans, and Major General Frederick Steele with 10,000 from Little Rock. With no easy way to communicate, the whole thing seemed destined for chaos. One Union general called it one damn blunder from beginning to end. The Red River Campaign ended with the Yankees retreating, giving the rebels a much-needed break. Around that same time, the Confederates captured Fort Pillow and killed 300 Union soldiers who had surrendered, many of them black. Shortly after, Grant stopped all prisoner exchange talks until the South agreed to treat black POWs the same as white ones. Grant was also getting ready for one of the toughest fights of his life, the Battle of the Wilderness. His orders were straightforward: find Lee's army and follow it wherever it went. His force, the Army of the Potomac, was led by Major Generals Gouverneur K. Warren, Winfield S. Hancock, and John Sedgwick, plus Ambrose Burnside with his 9th Corps. On the Confederate side, Lee commanded a ragtag group of leaders. The South was still hurting from the loss of Stonewall Jackson, Lee's trusted right hand. Still, A.P. Hill and Richard S. Ewell stepped up, and Lee's close friend James Longstreet came along. In early May, Grant moved his men out of the Spotsylvania wilderness toward open ground, hoping to fight the Confederates head-on. Lee, however, ordered his troops to trap the Union inside the wilderness, where rough terrain would favor the South. These opposing plans led to the Northerners spotting the approaching rebels. Warren sent a division to scout, while Union forces tried to avoid a fight before escaping the woods. But things didn't go their way. A Union officer later recalled, "The very moment we appeared, they gave us a volley at long range, but evidently with very deliberate aim and with serious effect." Warren had only meant to investigate, but the force he found was General Ewell's entire corps, and they attacked immediately. Fighting broke out at Saunders Field, turning into what one soldier called bushwhacking on a grand scale because of the dense forest. Meanwhile, near Hill, another fight started along the Plank Road. Confederates there ran into Sedgwick's division while trying to cut the Northerners off from the important Brock Road. Early on, the advantage kept switching sides. The outnumbered Southerners under Hill were at a disadvantage. Longstreet was supposed to help Hill after dark, so Hill held off attacking at dawn, waiting for Longstreet. That delay meant Union attacks that morning crushed Hill until Longstreet finally arrived, hours late. The fighting around Plank and Brock Roads continued, with the Confederates gaining the edge at times, but it ended as a partial Union victory. Still, the Southerners finished stronger after General John B. Gordon routed Yankee troops along the turnpike on May 6th, capturing 2 Union generals. The North paid a heavy price. Union casualties were double those of the South. The situation got so bad that Grant, acting completely out of character, broke down crying in his tent when he heard the news. Yet neither Grant nor the North was ready to quit. Instead of retreating fully, they marched deeper south toward Richmond. Throughout May, the Union ran 2 bold campaigns at once: Grant's Overland Campaign and Sherman's Atlanta Campaign. The Overland Campaign had begun with the Battle of the Wilderness, a disappointing draw at best, made worse by a massive fire. It seemed like a bad omen, but Grant told a reporter there was no going back. The campaign was just getting started. Just hours later, the next clash came at Spotsylvania Courthouse, where Lee stalled Grant for 2 weeks until the Union general finally pulled away. After losing another 18,000 men, Grant pushed toward Richmond. More fights followed as they trudged toward the Confederate capital. The Battle of Cold Harbor delivered yet another blow to the Union. After 6 weeks, the campaign ended. The North had suffered about 55,000 casualties, and the war's 3rd and 4th bloodiest battles had occurred. But Grant was now playing a war of attrition. With Confederate losses around 33,000, the Union had actually gained a strategic victory. Meanwhile, Sherman and his men were ordered to capture Atlanta. Starting from Tennessee, they began their march. Other events were happening in the Union as well. On June 8, 1864, Abraham Lincoln officially became the Republican nominee for re-election. But Grant got bad press. Many in Washington started calling him the Butcher for sacrificing so many men in hopes of ending the war sooner. Other battles continued, like the Battle of Bryce's Crossroads, where General Samuel Sturgis was crushed by a much smaller Confederate force under General Nathan Bedford Forrest. Sherman, however, wasn't worried about his comrades' problems. His own campaign succeeded. After a series of fights, the Confederates under General John Hood abandoned Atlanta, surrendering it to the Yankees. The Union held the city until November, when Sherman ordered all military supplies there burned. That led to an uncontrolled fire that destroyed the entire city. As summer heat beat down on both sides, the Confederates tried to make big moves too. General Jubal Early wanted to relieve pressure on Petersburg and Richmond, which had been under Union siege since the Overland Campaign ended. He fought the North at the Battle of Monocacy in Maryland and won, though many Northerners called it a tactical victory because it stopped Early from reaching Washington, D.C. Early did eventually get to the capital's defenses, but withdrew the same day. The war wasn't only on land. In early August, the North targeted Mobile, Alabama. The Battle of Mobile Bay, just outside the city, was a joint land and sea operation to capture the Confederate port, which had become vital after New Orleans fell. Union Admiral David Farragut sped his fleet through the bay behind 4 ironclads, facing a small Confederate flotilla and 2 strong forts. The Confederates fought hard, but the Union won. The city of Mobile stayed in Southern hands, but the port belonged to the North. Fighting around Petersburg stayed intense due to the siege. The next month, a 3rd battle broke out at Winchester. After his failed Washington attack, Jubal Early had remained in the Shenandoah Valley, which the South had been using to launch raids into the North. So the Union decided to clear the Shenandoah. They sent General Philip Sheridan to do it. The battle started when Sheridan's Army of the Shenandoah tried to move through a narrow canyon near Berryville Pike. The Confederates, led by General Stephen D. Ramsier's division, opened fire, trapping soldiers and wagon trains inside the canyon. Their goal wasn't to defeat the much larger Union force, but to slow it down, giving Early time to rush his remaining troops to help. By the time the Northerners organized their own assault, Major Generals Robert E. Rhodes and John B. Gordon had arrived to support Ramseur. The The fight was on. The Yankees slowly pushed back Ramseur's Confederates while his comrades fought their own battles nearby. Gordon and his men were in one of those clashes, and for a while they held their own. A Union soldier described the scene. The grass and earth was cut and torn up by a perfect sheet of lead. Bullets sought the hiding places of the men with fatal accuracy. Blood was on everything, was everywhere, was spattered on bushes, was gathered in ghastly puddles on the ground. Rhodes also launched a strong counterattack nearby as both Ramseur and Gordon regained some lost ground. As the fighting dragged on, the Northerners worried the rebels might actually win. So Sheridan called in reinforcements. "I've got Crook here with 10,000 men," he said, "and I'm going to throw them in and whip these fellows." Sheridan was mostly right. The Confederates lost, and the Union took the city. This became the bloodiest battle ever fought in the Shenandoah Valley. Sheridan lost more than 10% of his entire army. The Confederates lost about 4,000, not much fewer than the much larger Union force they'd faced. But Sheridan wasn't finished with Early. He wanted him completely out of the Shenandoah. After the Third Battle of Winchester, Early pulled back to Fisher's Hill, thinking it would protect his shaken troops. Known as the Gibraltar of the Valley, the hill could be a strong defensive spot. But Early couldn't set up proper defenses before Sheridan arrived. General Crook, sent by Sheridan, ambushed Early's left flank while other Union forces distracted them. The Confederates retreated again, chased all the way to Woodstock. Over the next months, the Union carried out the burning to destroy the Confederacy's breadbasket, and eventually took full control of the Shenandoah Valley. Things looked worse and worse for the rebels. Back in the North, the war seemed closer to ending. Earlier in the year, Robert E. Lee had believed that if his Confederates could hold on long enough, war-weary Northerners might elect a president who sympathized with the South. That never happened. The election came down to Republican incumbent Abraham Lincoln versus his former general, Democrat George McClellan. Lincoln and his VP, Andrew Johnson, won in an Electoral College landslide. The popular vote wasn't a blowout, but the electoral votes were 212 for Lincoln and just 21 for McClellan. If Lee still hoped for a favorable end to the war, those hopes were nearly dead. To make things worse for the South, in November, Sherman began his march to the sea. After taking Atlanta and forcing the Confederates to retreat, Sherman decided to press his advantage. He split his army in two. Sherman led one part, 62,000 men, on a path through Georgia to Savannah, with the single goal of causing destruction. The Yankees destroyed Confederate infrastructure, farms, and railroads. Sherman ordered his men not to kill civilians, but he wanted to make their lives miserable. The idea was that if the rebels lost infrastructure, supplies, and civilian support, their war effort would collapse and the Union would win for good. And that's exactly what the Yankees did as they marched toward Savannah. Almost no one stopped them. At one point, Sherman's army skirmished with a heavily outnumbered Confederate cavalry that eventually fled. Ironically, the Confederates also used scorched earth tactics ahead of the Union forces, burning bridges, barns, and anything useful. Still, the Union reached Savannah and captured it, presenting the city to the newly re-elected president as an early Christmas gift. At the end of the year, fighting moved to Tennessee, where the Southerners were crushed at the Battle of Nashville. As the holidays passed, 1864 came to a close. But the war didn't. The South looked weak and the North looked strong, but the Confederates still refused to surrender. It would be hard, but not impossible, to continue. So they did. So by the end of 1864, the Confederacy was hanging by a thread. The Union had the momentum, a re-elected leader, and Sherman's devastating march. But the war wasn't over yet. One more brutal year lay ahead. Want to know how it finally ended? Stick around for the next video. If you're interested in more deep looks at the moments that shaped history, subscribe to The War Files HQ and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. There are plenty more stories ahead, and we'd love to have you along for them. Thanks for watching.